Hey everybody, it's Mr. Eisens here again. We're looking at the taxonomy and classification notes today. So let's get into it. All right, taxonomy, classification of living organisms. That's the definition of taxonomy. It is going to be the study of that. All right, so we'll start with a little bit of history. We're looking at Carlos Linnaeus. He developed a two-word naming system for classification in the 1700s. It's really, really important. Okay, we call this binomial nomenclature. Okay, binomial. So bi meaning two numbers. Okay, or two, nomial meaning or words. Okay, and then nomenclature is just how we're going to group things, how we're going to organize things. Okay, so basically every species is going to have two names. All right, and so what are those two names going to be? Well, they're going to have a scientific name, that is the genus, and then they're going to have the species. The species is going to be very specific to every species that we know of, and the genus is going to be slightly wider spread. And so we're gonna look at this. Where everything in our world needs to kind of have its place, and how we classify things is important, and we'll find that out in the next slides. But humans, our species name is Homo sapien. Okay, that's what we are. All right, so what are the benefits of classifying? This is a super important slide. It's to accurately and uniformly name organisms, accurately speaking, to make sure that people are calling the same animal the correct name, because there's a lot of common names that go around, like a puma or a mountain lion. They're the same species, okay? They're the same thing, but they are called different things. So depending on where you live. And so trying to kind of figure that out can be important for scientists. Or if you think of certain names that don't make sense, like starfish and jellyfish aren't really fish. They don't share a lot of characteristics of fish. They aren't related to them, evolutionarily speaking. And so it can be kind of confusing, because they're called starfish and jellyfish, so they have different names. All right, so what we do is we use Latin and Greek to make all these names, because that way we're all speaking the same language. Since Latin and Greek happen to be a dead language, no people actually speak it anymore. It's useful for science because we can kind of agree on what to call things, okay, instead of using specific languages, okay? So let's go on to our categories. These are going to be our main categories. As you can see, it's kind of redundant in how it works. So we start with the biggest one on top, So we're talking about the domain here. Okay, the domain, the broadest of all categories. All right, then we have our kingdoms, our phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Genus, species. Remember the two-word naming system? Well, that's the genus and the species put together. Okay, and so it starts with the domain. We got 3 domains, and then we have each of those domains have kingdoms within them. Each of the kingdoms have phylums within them. Each of the phylums have classes, orders, families, all the way down. And so we start with branching everything into 3 categories in domains, and we slowly narrow it down to each individual species. Okay, so let's keep on going. Here's a cool way to remember this. Okay, King Philip came over for good soup is one way to remember this. If you want a different one, or you can make up your own, of course. The kids play chess on fat guy's stomach. I think that one's kind of funny. I kind of like that one better. So, anyways, memory helper. Those are super nice. Super nice to help you remember exactly what we're looking for. Kingdom, phylum, class. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Remember those. All right, here we go. So the domains. These are the 3 domains that everything fits into. We have eukarya, which have a nucleus. We have bacteria, which aren't as specific and don't have a nucleus. Okay, we're talking about bacteria. And then we have archaea, which you guys probably haven't heard of a ton of, but they live in, they're the oldest of all these 3, and they live in extreme areas. So extreme hot, extreme cold, extreme salinity, which means a lot of salt. Okay, all those things. All right, so let's talk about each of these. Eukarya is the one you're going to be most familiar with. That has animalia, which is animals that you'd think of. We have plantae, which is plants you would think of. Fungi, which are the funguses that you can find under trees or mushrooms. Okay, and then we have protista, which are like single-celled little animals. I mean, that's kind of the way they act. These are complex organisms with eukaryotic cells, meaning they have a nucleus. They are complex. They are able to do a lot more and be multicellular because of this. Okay, generally multicellular organisms, but the protista are typically single-celled. Okay, let's keep on going. So let's look at all the kingdoms here. So we're going to start with fungi. Fungi, you can see little pictures. Typically, are going to be mushrooms. The biggest thing here, guys, they do not have chloroplasts. They're not plants. They're different. Okay, they're able to make energy. Typically, they're decomposers, and they're able to decompose things in the environment that are dead and recycle their nutrients. Okay, so they can be very, very, very important. So things that you want to remember is going to be they can be multicellular or unicellular. That's going to be important. I mean, nutrition. So heterotrophic means that they're going to change chemicals into other chemicals and use it as food. Okay, they obtain nutrients by using enzymes to break down and digest food outside the body and then absorb the nutrients. Okay, that's why they're decomposers. Let's keep on going. So kingdom protista, these are single-celled, basically animals, you guys. They have nucleus, as you can see in these euglena. They have that little red thing in the middle. It's dyed, so you can see it, but that's going to be their nucleus. And they're going to be able to do a lot of things that you'd think of animals. They move around. They can consume other organisms. Some of them have chloroplasts. As you can see, the euglena have chloroplasts. They're mostly unicellular, but they're not all. So that means they could be multicellular. They can be autotrophic. Auto meaning they can make energy by themselves. They got chloroplasts to make energy, to use the energy from the sun. So they're kind of like plants. And then heterotrophic is just like fungi. So they're going to break down something and then get the nutrients that way. Okay, kingdom plantae, we're talking about plants. Okay, and so these plants are going to have, they're a little bit different than our animal cells. They're going to have cell walls, they have cellulose, they have chloroplasts. They have a lot of things going on for them. But the biggest thing here is plants. And this one is going to be multicellular, but they're all autotrophic. They all have chloroplasts. They're all able to get energy from the sun. Okay. Kingdom Animalia. Okay, this one's important. Again, we're looking at the multicellular and we're looking at how they get their energy. Okay, body form, they're all multicellular. When we get to the Animalia, okay, and then they're all heterotrophic, so they get their energy from something else. They got to go find their energy in order to get it, just like we find food to go eat. We can't just sit in the sun like plants do and get energy that way. Okay, let's keep on going. So bacteria is another domain, pretty big one. There are so many types of bacteria, but the things you need to know is they're unicellular and simple, and because there's only one cell, and then they're prokaryotic, so that means they don't have a nucleus. They don't have a way to organize their DNA, and therefore they're simple. They aren't capable of doing a lot of things as far as our complex multicellular eukaryotic cells are. So eubacteria is one of the kingdoms, which is important. It's unicellular. They're mostly heterotrophic, but some are going to be able to make their own energy just like plants do. Okay. The rest of them are just kind of extra information for you to know. This word right here, ubiquitous, just means that they're everywhere. Like you can't see them, but they're literally everywhere. They're probably on my hands right now. They're probably on the desk right now. They're probably, they're literally everywhere. No matter where you go, you're going to run into bacteria. And not all of them are bad, guys. Not all of them cause disease. Some of them are super important to our own bodies to keep us healthy. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right. Archaea. They're going to be extremophiles. Okay? As you can see in the second line. Extremophiles meaning extreme of something. Like they live in super hot or super cold or super salt water. They're going to be prokaryotic just like bacteria. And they're unicellular organisms without a nucleus, which is what prokaryotic means. Okay, so like we said, they live in extreme conditions. Hot, cold, excuse me, or super salty. All right, so here's another or a few more examples. These are some underwater vents, which are going to be super hot. Some hot springs here, just showing that they show up in these colors here are going to be the archaea. They're going to show up on these extreme places on Earth. So they're pretty cool. And like I said, they're also the oldest. They're prokaryotic, just like bacteria. All right, lastly, classification tools. And we're going to go more into this in another slideshow, specifically talking about dichotomous keys. Okay, cladograms, a way to organize things. So as we go here, we start less specific and we go to more specific. Okay, everything that has a certain example. So here we have the vertebral column, which just means a backbone. Okay, it just means our spine, right? Everything from here on is going to have a spine. Okay, everything. So the lamprey, the tuna, the salamander, the turtle, the leopard. Here, everything has jaws after this. So that means, it doesn't have jaws, the lamprey. And the lancelet. Okay, the lancelet doesn't have the vertebral column. So you just find the trait. So 4 walking legs, everything above it. So the salamander, turtle, and leopard, they all have 4 legs. Everything behind it, tuna, lamprey, lancelet, don't have the characteristics. So let's go to hair. Anything behind here is not going to have hair. All right, whereas the leopard is the only one with hair. So it's a cool way to organize organisms, or you could do this with shoes. We might do this in class. You could do this with, you could organize people by what they're wearing, okay, whether it's a certain color or whatever. The cladogram is a nice way to organize this and make sure that you have organisms that have things in common in front of our word, and then behind it, they don't have that. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's look at one dichotomous key. We're going to look at a lot more dichotomous keys in another notes video, but a dichotomous key is just a tool that allows the user to determine the identity of organisms. Okay, so right here, if we wanted to identify bird, let's go with bird W. Okay, we'd start with question 1, and we're going to ask questions and then answer them and see what we get. So the beak is relatively long and slender. Is that true? Relatively long and slender? This is where you got to be able to differentiate and look at the picture and understand. I would say it's pretty long and slender. And so, boom, all of a sudden we got our bird just like that. But we also want to read B just to make sure we didn't make a mistake. The beak is relatively stout and heavy. Stout is going to be a little shorter, okay, and rounded, whereas heavy is going to be pretty thick. So that would probably wind up being bird X's beak, or bird Z would be another example. So something to keep in mind. All right, guys. Lastly, this is going to be a really important page. I'm going to move my portrait again. But basically, looking at this page, this just kind of breaks down all of our domains and then the kingdoms that follow. So eukarya, remember, has 4 kingdoms. Archaea has 1. Bacteria has eubacteria, which is 1. And then we can kind of break them down on what are their cell types. How many cells do they have? Multicellular, multicellular. Well, it could be both, or are they just unicellular? And then are they heterotrophic? Hetero meaning do they consume food outside their body and then take in those nutrients? Or are they autotrophic, which means we're talking about plants. They're able to create their own energy through the sun. Okay, and then lastly, there are modes of reproduction. And so the animals and plants are going to be sexual reproduction. They're going to have other individuals that they mate with, whereas certain plants and a lot of especially bacteria are asexual in their reproduction because they are just going to make copies of themselves. Okay, asexual meaning that they don't have a partner. There's one individual and they split into 2. Okay, they go from 1, they split into 2, and they're the same exact individual, DNA, genetically speaking. Okay, and then we have a bunch of examples here for you just to get in your mind of, oh, what are these? How can I think of them? Okay, awesome. Hope you guys have a great day. And make sure to study your notes and finish everything in your folders. See ya. Peace.